What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the Trail Theory Podcast. I'm Brian.
I'm Alex.
I'm Austin.
And I'm Pfeiffer.
Welcome back, everybody, to yet another episode of the Trail Theory Podcast. How are we doing tonight?
Oh, so good.
So good. This guy's good over here. Peachy.
Well, I'm well.
Well.
There you go.
Okay.
The only one with proper grammar.
Yeah. I'm well. Well, tonight we are going to reminisce a little bit about a trail that we did. I guess it was in 2000.
It was during COVID.
Don't tell me when it was.
2021?
Yeah, it was March 21st.
2021.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Yeah, it's on the screen over there.
Oh my God.
How about that? So,
Gosh, that was so
it was
long
like
ago.
3 years ago.
Yeah, it was during lockdown.
Damn, man. Well,
That's right.
We are going to talk about the
Not
Linville
really.
Gorge.
Well,
We were
locked
everyone
down.
was still locked down.
'Cause it was a
Not,
thing.
not really. It was on the tail end.
It was a
Tail
thing.
end,
It
yeah.
was a discussion point. We were like, "Hey guys,
Should we not go?
should we not
We
go?"
talked about
it. Was a talk.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
mean, we
no.
went to a restaurant, so things
did
weren't
go to a
locked
restaurant.
down. Lockdown to me was like March 2020 till like the
Yeah,
summer.
yeah.
That was lockdown.
Right.
It was
We
close.
were-
It was close enough to bring
We
it
were
up.
doing
Lockdown.
Right.
there were extra precautions
Yeah.
around that time, but it wasn't lockdown.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyways.
So we
Semantics.
We went to the we went to Linville Gorge. Blah 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 blah. And that's in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, to that point, that was one of my favorite trips we've ever done, and it still is one of my favorite trips we've ever done.
Yes.
Pisgah
banger.
National
It was
Forest.
a banger.
The Pisgah National Forest. You're
Yes.
right, and they call that the Grand Canyon of the East.
Yeah, it is an absolute must go to trail on the East Coast.
Yeah.
In
It
the,
is,
in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
And it is definitely up there. One of my favorite trails that I've ever done. It was mind blowing, and we'll go through all the details. You know, if you've been a listener since day one, you've definitely heard us talk about it because there's little stories here that have definitely come up. We've talked about situations that we've gotten into because I think that this one's pretty jam packed, full of
A lot of good.
we had a lot of
memories.
we had a
memories
lot of
and-
really good memories. In
a lot
this
of
one.
good
memories, but also like
experiences on this one.
some experiences and things we needed to work through that made the trip interesting. But I think that's why it gets referenced. So this is a good idea, I think, for us to kind of relive it, not just like doing pieces and parts of it throughout the episodes, but actually do something. Focusing on this trail.
Yeah.
Especially for those who might be looking for something on the East Coast to go and tackle.
It is definitely a must go.
Right, and we'll lead with that because I know we're going to say it at the end too. But like, if you're in the market and it's in your radius,
Boy, do we have a car for you.
Holy crap! Like, this is a trail
Yeah.
that everyone's got to hit. It was. We've talked about favorite trails before, and we've done a lot since this one. Still way up there for me.
This one continues to come top of mind for me.
It just had a lot of. You had the elevation. You had these huge vistas and views. You had different terrain. The terrain was incredible in the fact that we would be walking through the forest, and then it would open up a little bit, and then all of a sudden you'd have these huge 40-foot boulders just next to you, or on both sides of you, and you're having to go through. And it's like, I remember going through some of the pictures earlier today just to kind of refresh a little bit in my head, and I look at them, I'm like, man.
Yeah,
we could boulder or rock climb up some of those things. Like,
Lord
it was
of Rings-esque,
beautiful, dude.
Yeah, actually, no, that's a good point. When if you've watched Lord of the Rings, and that's all in New Zealand, but those aerial shots and they're going over, it's very reminiscent of that type of, you felt like you're part of the fellowship. Walking over and crossing the ridges and all that stuff. Especially in the beginning, and we'll talk about because we started it out and it's just fog, just nothing but can't see anything in front of you.
Oh my God.
Before we even hit the trail, before we even hit the trail, we had a first for us as a group.
What before we hit the trail?
Before we hit the trail, we did something that we have never done before.
I know.
The van.
We clocked a beer.
We
in the van.
Even before that, the van.
We rented the van.
We rented the van. We all came down.
I want to take a step, and I was just looking at my phone to recognize, because I remember the moment when this happened. So I'm going to take one step further.
Okay.
This was I'm scanning through my phone to look for pictures because I remember this moment, and I remember it led to some adversity later on in the trail.
Oh yeah.
If you remember, so it's now so the trip was the 21st of March. So March 9th, I remember coming across an article that talked about there being a bridge at the gorge that was no longer there.
Yes.
Right.
And I remember looking at pictures and sending you guys pictures. And I don't know why. This was one trip where I was like mega researching. Like I was over the top researching.
Yeah, you even did you sign back up for Facebook in order to join that Linville Gorge Facebook group?
I may have.
Oh my God.
That might have been the reason. I'm still on there, but it's literally
And
that's
you're
the
still
only
part
thing
of
I
the
follow.
group. Yeah.
And I love. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there's a Facebook group for the Linville
Also,
Gorge.
can I commend you for something? Because I do the same thing, not deleting photos on your phone.
Yeah, I wish I was
I
better
can go
about
back.
it, but I got
no,
it all.
I love it because like on an iPhone, you can go back by years and months and everything like that. And I'd be like, oh, I went to that ball game in 2017.
Searching by location
boom, there we go.
too is also huge.
And
that little map you can scroll
and
into.
I just learned about this. Maybe I'm just an old person or an idiot, but you can search in your photos for like I can put ZD, my dog's
That's
name,
facial recognition. And
and it'll pull up all the pictures of ZD. I never put ZD's name in this thing, but it just knows. Or if I put like green, it will show me all green. It's just
it's
cool.
Incredible.
Anyways, I digress.
Yeah,
So I could put in my phone like outdoors, and it'll show me all the photos I took. Probably backpacking. But anyway,
it is also funny.
So if I put in lock screen, will it show me all the times my kids have taken a picture of the lock screen on my phone?
I bet it would. I bet it would.
Maybe.
It's worth the test.
Millions of those.
That's hilarious.
So at the time, to rein it back, I was looking at, and I'd read about kind of the water level potentially crossing being this thing, and I remember sharing the text with you guys, and now like I see a picture of this bridge that looks very substantial that is no longer there, and I remember us having the conversation about having to cross this moment, and it might be a problem if the water's going too fast.
But I do remember that the bridge wasn't really it wasn't like a metal bridge. It was a tree. Oh, so
it was
substantial. But that is still a tree that was cut in half, and then they added railings to it that are just made out of like 2x4 and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
but
it wasn't a metal
substantial
bridge
enough that like there was
right. But I mean,
but there's
platforms
concrete pegs and stuff,
Yeah.
and there were rebar and stuff like that in there.
It was very well secured.
Question.
To the
So
rock,
you saw that on the 9th. March 9th is when you saw that. Do you know when that actually got swept away? Was it at that time?
It was way before.
It was way before.
Yeah.
And then because I remember we were like putzing around on all trails, and I remember if you search on the map for like photos or whatever,
right.
And that's where I was like really digging deep, because I thought, okay, and if you look at the Linville Gorge like Grand Loop, I think they call it or whatever, if the photos, it's like super concentrated where that's at. It's like Spence Ridge is the bridge, and there's like a million photos in that spot, so it's very obvious where it was. And then it's like it's a big topic of discussion at that time. I do think, and I remember sending it maybe in the last couple of months, they have replaced the bridge.
Yeah,
so there is a new bridge there.
Yeah,
right.
Which is crazy.
Isn't it like pretty robust?
I'm sure.
I think.
I mean,
I think
it has to be. I would think so. They know that the water level can get to a point where it's going to rip an entire tree out of a rock.
And that was part of it. And then also in the whatever that thread I'd found, they were talking about CFS, which was cubic feet per second that the water was flowing.
Yeah.
How fast
and
the
they're
water
saying
goes.
like, well, if it's blah blah blah, it's impassable.
Right.
So we on the way there, we were all checking.
Like minute to minute.
Yeah.
Like we had
like,
the weather.
It's good. And then it rained.
It rained.
on the way there.
Right on the way there. Yeah.
A lot.
And we
It made
saw
it
that
not good.
number go up.
Yeah.
And we'll get there.
Yeah, exactly.
But
So,
yeah,
but
we
that
were,
felt like a
that
good
was one thing that we were
precursor.
definitely
Yeah.
monitoring weeks beforehand and while we were there. But yeah, you're right. That was the first time. So this was a huge group of people that
Our
went.
largest.
I think we had nine.
Nine
there was a lot
times.
of guys, and fortunately, our friend Hair Force was able to join because he actually lives in Charlotte. So he was close by,
like
so
2
he was
hours
able
away.
to join, which was awesome.
Shout out to Air Force.
Yeah, Hair Force. Linville. we had the van rental, which was
Which
dope.
I think that
Yeah.
that is a big piece of why it's so memorable. That was such.
It was a good group.
That was an experience.
all
was
of
the
like
It was
one
cool.
Right.
Obviously, not all of us were in there because we had two buddies from DC,
Right,
and
they
then
were
one
driving
who
separate,
came from
yeah.
North Carolina. But like, yeah, to have us in the Ohio boys, and
Right.
what, dude? It reminded me of like going to camp back in the day.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
we'd always be in the
It's nostalgia.
camp van and going up to wherever the camp was for a couple hour drive. Like that's what that
and,
reminded me of.
it was
Roads.
a long. That was at the time. That was the longest we'd driven to get to a trail.
It was like
Yeah,
9
it's
hours.
It was 8 or 9 hours, and so there's. I mean,
I'm
there's
ready
lots
to
of
go
stops
again.
along the way of like, and everyone pile out of the van and go get food. And
So
look at the random knickknacks and
road trip
different places.
snack. All right, one bag of something or candy bar or whatever. What is the one thing you're taking
Now?
with
Gosh.
you?
Now?
So it's okay.
When-
Let's
okay.
rephrase this because now I watched a podcast today that did this.
Really?
That it was gas station and snack. It's
Ah.
Huck
Yeah,
Berry.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
So, and I was like, man, we should do that because I'm
Really?
curious. Yeah.
Well, here we
Wow.
go.
All right, we're doing it.
So you're
Let's
saying
go.
we're on a road trip. You're any road trip. What's your snack that you're picking at a
What's
gas
your
station?
gas station go to? And we'll just keep it to snacks, like no drink or anything
One-
like that.
one
you
or
know,
two.
snacks.
So
items.
wait, is
What?
One item?
Two?
I'm just saying.
That's too much. We'll be here for a half an hour.
No, I know,
And
I know
is it,
two, but
is
I'm
it
just saying
only?
we'll do one.
Is it only stuff like on the racks, or is it?
Listen,
like,
dog, if
What?
it's in a gas
No,
station,
you can't be.
you can buy it.
It
And
can't,
that's your
it
snack.
can't be your
Roller
order.
dogs,
It can't.
dude. That
can be your
well,
snack.
Okay,
that's
I'm asking.
Most
I'm
gas
asking.
stations, I
okay.
think, have roller dogs.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm saying, is it like prepackaged
You're not
stuff? Or
getting
can
this.
Listen, you're
roller
getting into
dog.
the fucking weeds.
I'm
Munchos, Munchos chips. They're in a gas station. I buy them only at the gas station, only when I'm traveling.
Yeah.
I don't buy them at home. I don't buy them anywhere else.
Munchos.
Yep.
Munchos chips. They're salty. They're fucking delicious. They're corn crisps. They're weird.
Yeah,
they're
are weird,
delicious.
but they're good. Yeah, nice.
That's
Munchos.
yours.
No, yeah, that's good.
They're in the
That's-
Funyun family.
is that-
also love
wait, is
those.
The Funyuns are great. I think that's a key.
Is that the
component
brand you
too.
can like only get at Love's or Pilots? What's
no,
the one?
they-
No,
that
I've
you
know
seen
they're
can-
Munchos
everywhere.
all over.
like an orange bag? You'll see them now.
I
but
know.
usually it's a gas station.
There's
snack to
another
me.
brand of like a Chex Mixy type of thing.
Oh, this isn't
I
Chex
only
Mix.
I know, but I only ever see it at Love's.
Oh, does it start with a G?
You're gonna have to
Oh,
report
I'd have
back.
to look it up.
Gear
I know what you're
Yeah,
saying.
I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about.
yeah.
I know what
those
you're talking
are,
about. It's
Those
not
are
that.
actually what I get when
I
I
was
go
gonna say.
on a plane.
Yeah, I remember you always getting
Yeah.
those.
I'm gonna say Chex Mix are like and the tier of like importance.
Oh no, these aren't.
They're
Chex
in the
Mix.
cellar.
This is,
Dude,
no, no, no.
Chex Mix.
No, get, no, no, no.
The brand Chex Mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, that
Get
the
the
flavor
flavor
those
is terrible.
corn, like
Get
the
that garbage
the
bad.
the wavy
little
little
waffle things.
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, the
Get that
cow
shit out of
chips
here.
or whatever. That's
Whatever,
what I
dude.
called them as a kid.
The best thing is the rye chip. That's
Yeah.
in the
The
Chex
bread-
Mix.
the bread
That's-
chip.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
No, I think you made an important point with that, where you said I don't buy them for home. This
Yeah.
is just for that.
Strictly road trip.
Mine, and I waffle between two. It's not
No,
waffles. There are two that I go between.
I think I know one of them.
But I think like, dude, gun to my head, I'm going chili cheese Fritos.
What?
Hell yeah.
Whoa.
Hell
Dude,
yeah.
those are-
Bold move.
dude, it
I'm
just-
not sleeping in a tent with you.
I love
Holy
those chips.
shit.
Oh my
Have you ever had
God.
the swirly ones?
The twisties, yeah.
those are
Those are good.
delicious
Those
too.
are good. The-
Perfect flavor.
But dude, the chili cheese ones, they are like coated with so much seasoning, they almost
Yeah, bro.
hurt when you
Hard
eat them.
work,
Like,
dude.
you just-
Your whole
Yeah.
mouth
Gums
is
are
canker
like-
sore afterwards.
Yeah, dude, I love those, dude.
I
I'm
can't.
in.
I
I'm
love
in,
the
but
hurt.
I'll buy those at home though.
Oh,
I
really?
mean, not free. I'm snagging on chips all the time. But
Wow.
I would buy those at home. I remember having them as a
that's
kid.
definitely like that.
That's good.
Yeah, that's that. I think a gun to my head. That's what I'm going with nowadays.
So
Do you know yours?
what's
'Cause I
your
think I
second
had
option
mine.
though? Because you said you
Oh,
might have
Ruffles
to.
sour cream and
That's
cheddar.
the one I thought you were going to
Yeah,
say.
but that's like my entire life. I've gotten if I
Right.
stop
You
at a
can get
gas
that
station,
anywhere,
I
yeah.
get that with Arnold Palmer, Arizona Arnold
yeah.
Palmer. That's like the
That's a
thing,
good
right?
call.
Yeah.
Hell
Those
yeah.
are the two.
That's a good
But
call.
there's something about those Frito chili, like I had to get some of this gas station because I'm dying in the next 3 hours. That's the one thing that I'm getting.
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
eat.
Hell yeah.
See, I have a hard time because I love just straight up pretzels.
That's
Dude.
boring
I,
as
I love straight up pretzels.
ass
dude.
outta here.
I
Cellar.
do.
Get your
I do.
dry
It's
mouth
right
ass
down
out of
there
here.
with Chex
I do.
Mix.
But now I would bring the Nerds clusters.
Oh man.
You're
That's
wait,
what I would
hang
bring
on.
now.
No.
Look,
You're
listen,
just gonna those are a treat. You're just gonna munch on clusters
Yeah.
for like an 8-hour trip.
I absolutely could.
I have a
Candy
confession
boy.
to
I
make.
absolutely could.
Allison and I, if we have a road anywhere we're driving, could be to Indianapolis to see family, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever. there will be Nerds clusters in the
Yeah.
car at some point.
Yeah.
But they also Nerds clusters are just a part of my life now. Munchos are exclusively road trip.
Yeah, right.
Nerd clusters
See, I don't have them in my house all the time.
are the best candy on the planet.
Yeah,
right
they're
now.
great.
They're
God,
the tip of the spear.
Why did you say pretzels? I'm so mad at you right now.
I love,
And then
dude,
you
I love
follow
pretzels.
up with
Let me-
fucking
let me
gummy
save-
clusters,
I
Nerds
love pretzels.
clusters.
Let me save him a little bit.
I love
Pretzels
pretzels,
suck, dude.
Your range is
when
like
you eat a
best
pre-
snack, worst
when
snack.
you eat a pretzel and like you can like sometimes I do this and maybe this is a really weird thing.
It is.
I'll
I don't
like-
even need to know
I'll
what
like-
it is.
I'll like chew it up a little bit, but I'll like leave a little, and it just kind of like sogs up in your
That's-
mouth a little bit.
that's-
I don't know. It's
no,
weird.
No, that's
you're wrong.
You do
You're
that
wrong.
with a combo.
It's weird. I know
No,
it's
you-
weird.
If it's a combo and there's pretzel and it's cheese and all those,
See, I don't like
his
combos
favorite,
either.
his favorite drink
that.
is his favorite drink is water.
yeah.
No,
And he just lets it sit in his mouth for like an hour before he swallows it.
I know I'm weird with it, but
No, I'll just ruin the surprise for me.
What's yours?
Combos, baby.
Combos.
That's-
Oh,
That's a,
combos.
that's
buddy.
a fast
What
makes
follow.
your
flavor,
breakfast
though?
terrible too.
That's the beauty of
You
it.
do the
I will,
pizza.
I will
Gross.
pick one, but the reason why it's combos is because
You
Tons
got
of different
whatever you're
flavors.
feeling, baby.
I-
They
different
got
I may or may
35
not-
different
They're
flavors or
almost
some
all
shit.
the same, but
Yeah,
they're
gross.
It's
slightly
a pretty
different.
similar taste.
Yeah,
I
it's
agree.
all just salt.
I may or may not have
That's the
combos
key.
in the door of my car right
I
now.
would be surprised.
Really?
I
do,
am.
100%.
If you had to
Because
say
we
pick a
traveled
flavor,
2 weekends ago.
if you had to say pick a flavor, it's going to be pizza. For
Pizza.
Sure.
I think
I
pizza.
couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
Pizza's the
or do they make ones that are like buffalo wings?
I was gonna say
Yeah.
you
Those
say
are
blue
good,
cheese
dude.
That would be
buffalo. and
okay.
I'll kiss
Cheese
you.
buffalo.
I will say there's a little bit of a misleading one. I think there's one that's like a ranch, and that I remember
No,
having
that's
that,
not
and
good.
it's just it's just straight up. If you just poured ranch seasoning in your mouth,
Ew.
like it's
no,
just
that's no good.
like it's too much. but the
much.
pizza's a good balance.
Pizzas are good.
That,
The
that and a
classic
nice
ones are good,
Gatorade,
too.
you know, that and a nice drink, a
Dude,
Palmer, Gatorade, something like that.
Gatorade's such
yeah.
a funny road trip drink, but it's so
Dude,
true.
Yeah.
I have Gatorade I have Gatorade probably twice a week now.
Really?
Yeah, it's what I drink when I play hockey.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
all right.
yeah.
That's
But dude, it's so
For
funny
elite
that
athletes.
Gatorade
On the
is
way
like a
home.
road trip drink. I feel like I only ever drank it like
in the car
as a road trip
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I'd never have it
until
outside
I
of that.
became like an adult.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. But I will say on a road trip,
What I-
you got to get those electrolytes.
What I will say is
Yeah.
there's so much more to this conversation, and
You're
we got to
sitting
get
there with your ass.
we're
in the-
talking about
in-
We're gonna talk about snacks.
We'll have to get
we
back
could
to
have a whole
Linville,
episode
but-
about this, but I will say there's something. Picking your favorite is, you definitely have a favorite. But when I do road trips, it's all about the collection. Right?
Yeah.
You go in and you're getting combos, and
That's what I'm
maybe
saying. A
maybe
salty
meat
and a
kit.
sweet.
so what
You
you're
know,
saying
salty and a
is
sweet.
you're
Right, I
a
like a
yes
Snickers.
and kind of guy.
It's
Maybe- maybe
the
a-
combos is the entree, but
maybe
you're
a
going to get
sleeve
a
of
side.
donuts.
I love a Butterfinger.
And
I
the
will
donuts
say
is
we do that
Sometimes
all the time.
A sneaky fucking
A
donut.
sleeve of donuts,
Hold
dude.
on.
We do that constantly.
Oh, man. Underrated.
This actually has to do with this trip.
Sneaky donut.
This actually has to do with this trip because
Which
so,
we should get back to.
So we all took the van. How long of a drive was it?
was
like
like
12
9
hours?
hours.
No,
it was like
it was
nine.
9. It was
Yeah.
9. Yeah.
So-
80K was about 12.
Skipping to the end real quick because we're on food and I don't want to forget. But we stopped at a gas station not long after eating like an insane meal, and a couple people overbought snacks.
Oh, I
because
did
a
for
couple
sure.
people bought boxes of donuts.
That people bought
like
boxes of donuts,
lady
and
fingers?
I
I
bought a bag of donuts.
Bag of donuts,
Yeah.
lady fingers,
Oh, yeah. That's
a lot of
multiple
donuts.
glazed donuts, and we
Oh,
just
yeah.
destroyed so much food at a brewery.
We turn into raccoons when
Dude.
we're out.
Oh, yeah.
Well, your brother Mike,
Yeah.
Father Mike, he overbuys snacks. He's the one that always comes. Oh, I got all this stuff. Like,
Oh, yeah.
my
Yeah, it's like, bro,
I'm not gonna eat this.
Why do we have 24 donuts? There's like we just ate, and there's 6 of us.
he won't
Yeah,
be,
we'll be on the
he
road
won't
for
be
another
packed
7
for the
hours.
trip, but he'll have
There you
snacks.
go.
Yeah,
There you
right.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
Gosh.
So-
going back, so we haven't even gotten on the
I
trip.
know. We get to the trail. We pull up. Everybody. The other 2 guys from DC are there. Brad's there.
And we brought some beers to start the trip with.
And
Well, we had to-
everybody gets in the van.
We had
'cause
to
it's
get
raining.
into the van because it's raining.
It's-
Immediately,
it was
pouring.
Yeah.
It was
We were
pouring.
drinking
Yes.
we drank our beers in the van.
And we have an
Yeah.
awesome picture, which I think we've said we
I
would post before.
I
but
just saw
yeah.
it, so I have
We'll
it.
post
Yeah.
it. We'll
Post
post it in here. But like, so we had to wait. It was almost like 45 minutes. We were just waiting in
Yeah.
the van, just hanging out, drinking
Drinking beer.
beer.
Which for most of us was
Road
a fine
pop.
idea.
Yeah.
But if you remember, once we started the trail,
There was one member-
gentleman.
Nick immediately vomited.
No, not
Hold on.
immediately.
I'm saying within the first half mile.
I'm gonna
be-
no.
it
I'm
was
gonna say
about
it was
a mile.
no.
It was a mile. And to be fair to Nick, it got incredibly humid and hot.
And he had like 7.
He did.
No, he had one.
He had one.
Yeah,
We all had
but
one.
like,
I think we were all pretty.
I
yeah.
mean, we're gonna post some photos and stuff like that
was
up
very
of the
hot.
trail.
Vomit.
It was incredibly
it also
hot,
started
humid.
It also started pretty heavy. Like it started pretty intense. We
Yes,
were going
it
up.
was- we were going up
Yeah.
pretty good.
Okay,
I mean,
so think about this. It just rained. We get all our shit on. We're going.
It's muggy.
So
Just had a beer.
well,
It was
but
so
as soon as
muggy.
you first start, you're like, oh, it's kind of cool because it rained. So like, I think some of us had like long sleeves.
Yeah.
Some of us
We had
even
jackets
like
we
on.
took
Jackets.
jackets
Yeah.
off within like the first 100 yards.
Yeah.
and we were like, oh god, this is. And it immediately got crazy humid.
Yeah.
And the sun came out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was up. And it was.
But it was
we were
foggy
up.
still, though.
It was foggy. It was sunny.
So
and
we-
it was humid.
Yeah.
And it was hot. And we were going uphill.
Yeah.
And
Weird
we just
collection of weather.
finished the beer.
So we started at elevation. We started at 18,000. Or I'm sorry, we started at
Wow.
1,800 feet. Not 18,000. We started 1,800
Climbing
feet.
mountains.
Okay, we had to
I
go
think the only way you can climb is down when you're up that high.
right. We had to go up a mile, almost a mile and a half, to 2,900 feet. So
God, that's more than I
1100.
remember.
it was quite a pretty
Remember,
steep.
this is the trip
pitch.
that kicked my ass.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a hard one, especially at that time in the trips that we'd done. This was the hardest thing we'd done.
It was,
when you
it was
look-
the hardest.
Yes,
when you
I
look at the like elevation meter and stuff, it looks like an AKG meter. Like just,
It doesn't look that jagged though.
I mean, it's pretty jagged. But this is also we'll get into
over
it.
the
It's,
length.
it's
Yeah,
off
yeah.
of the
We were
over
on
length
a
of everything.
ridge, and
You're on a
yeah.
ridge, right?
But yeah, no, that first little part jaunt was definitely severe, and yeah, Nick was not feeling hot. It was actually it the first trip he had joined us on?
no, that was
No.
Greg's first trip.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Greg's first
But
trip.
anyways,
That's
he
right.
was just like, boys, I gotta like chill. And like me and somebody else like hung back, and I was like, dude, no, do your thing, man. Like. And he was
shut
like, I think
up.
I'm gonna throw up. I was like, please do. Like, well,
make you feel better.
please do, because like it'll make you feel so much better. I mean,
Right.
vomiting always
Yeah,
makes it better.
I
So
agree.
Yeah.
just to expel what you need to get that.
And I think
get
that was
Miller
it.
Lite out of your
Right.
system. Let's roll.
I think that was it. I think he did what he needed to do, and it was like, all right.
He was
we'll go
fine.
now.
Yeah,
he was fine.
He was
After
good.
the whole-
He was
yeah,
fine,
rest of the
yeah.
trip, he was good.
The one thing I will say though,
He's also carrying like 1,000,000 pounds.
That is
so
true.
That was a factor.
His pack was atrociously heavy.
It
that
was
trip.
it was out of line. It was. I don't know the words.
If we can ever get him on this podcast, we need the
Yeah.
episode will be a Nick pack audit.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
We'll just tell him, hey,
It'll just be called ultra heavy.
We're gonna make a new website for
Nick,
him called Heavy
drive
Pack.
back to Ohio
Not
from
lighter
DC.
Pack, Heavy Pack.
oh my
No, I want to say
It
this
was
too.
heavy.
I don't know why we
is
ended
way
up doing
too
this
heavy.
because there's parking in trailheads all over this trail on both sides of the river. We parked-
to cue a line from The Hangover. We f***ed up.
How?
We parked all the way down on the east side where we could have started all the way north. Like we were coming from the north and
Yeah.
we drove an extra like hour south in order to get to a trailhead.
I didn't know
on the
that.
same trail. I don't know why we did that.
I'm gonna say
know
that
that.
there was a reason or
we
something.
started
There
on
had to
short.
be.
We started on short off trail, and there's a parking lot over in that section where we did. I don't know why we did that.
Did we do it because of the bridge washout possibility?
Or did we do it because we knew that other people were driving from a different direction?
and try to get to a spot from.
I think we were
based
trying
on where
to-
we were at with the loop.
I think we were trying to find him. Well, no,
But there's
no
welcome-
DC
no,
would have been
you know
north.
why? I know why. Because Brad was coming up from south.
That's right.
It was going to be easier for him to meet there. Because we also, if you remember, we
He
talked.
was only driving 2 hours though. We drove 9.
I know, we talked about cash and water somewhere too.
Oh, you're right. We did. That's another topic I want to talk
What?
about. We
I don't
talked
remember
about
this at all.
caching water somewhere because the river you really shouldn't drink out of.
Because it had mercury, right?
That's
No,
It
right.
has-
there's
it's-
a cow,
there's
a pig farm
Right.
north
There's a
of
cattle
it.
ranch north
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah, so all
And
that
the
water.
runoff.
That's right.
And so I actually was curious a little bit more about it too, because I was like, well, can you just
you
like,
could risk it.
you can risk it. Can you just use your water filter? And that'll be okay. It's not. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
A lot of the viruses and stuff like that, a lot of the gastroviruses and stuff, those aren't segregated out from the water from the filters. So that doesn't actually work for that kind of thing. So they're telling people that you really should only drink water in that area off of a
Like
runoff
from the stream,
from a
yeah,
stream
right,
going
the stream
into
out.
the
Well,
river.
and again, I don't remember
So you're
having these
right.
conversations about this, but I do remember only having water off of the streams off
Right.
the side of the mountain.
Yeah,
or side of the-
we were
Yeah.
pretty.
We did okay.
Yeah, we were pretty strict with that. I think.
I
I
think.
do think
I
we
remember
did.
that last day.
The
I remember
last
the
night,
fill-up.
the last night we did get it. I think we boiled the water though. I think it was for cooking only.
Yeah,
That
I
would
don't
make sense.
remember.
I think you're right.
Because I remember huddling around
might-
that
it might
little
have-
tiny spigot that was like just kind of.
Oh, we'll get there.
dribbling
Yeah,
out.
dude, we'll get there.
It might have been.
Pain
But
in the
okay,
ass.
so
DC
the
folks,
reason
though, too.
that may have been that too, because like we were thinking like Brad could drop off some water at a certain trailhead for us
Yeah.
to snag
Right.
if we needed
Right.
to.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, either way, I liked the trail head that we started. I liked that first jaunt.
It was
yeah.
it was a good spot.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
good. But yeah, okay.
It was yeah.
So we had headed on the first day. What was our like goal?
So the goal.
'Cause I remember it was
ultimately-
like pretty steep and pretty hard.
We were
day.
going to do the Grand Loop, I think, which was like what 27 miles.
No, it's like 31 miles. or
It was
something like
yeah.
that.
This was
Man.
back when we were
Whoa.
like we were
That
still
was
pretty aggressive. On
our first day
mileage.
we ended
Yeah.
up doing. Our first day we ended up doing 3.5 miles.
It seemed like 9 or
Yeah.
more.
First day, that's
It was
That's it.
a hard day.
That's
Well, we-
all
I
we
mean,
did.
we
I know.
drove
I
we
know.
drove
10
too.
hours
You're
to
right.
get there,
You're right.
you know.
We drove all
But dude,
day.
and also like it was pretty
Yeah.
steep.
It was
I
up,
remember
yeah.
looking
Yeah.
up, dude. We had to get on the ridge, and I remember looking up and be like, "We're walking up that."
We
Yeah.
did almost 2,000
It was
feet of
pretty
elevation
intense.
gain
Yeah.
that day.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah.
And I mean,
thought-
the
thought
area
we did
we're
more
in,
that
if
day.
anyone's been around there, or even driven down the highway that goes through, you can see Table Rock. But this is the Table Rock area.
We passed Short Off
yeah.
Mountain. That was our first little section. That was our first like peak that we hit.
Yeah, and it's and like so if you've driven through that, it's no joke. I mean, they're like especially if you're starting low, we were humping up some elevation.
It was insane.
Now
It
the
was- it
second
was
day,
tough.
the second day was a very hard, long day, but that's because we ran into not being able to cross that river.
Oh, that was all one day.
Okay, but before we get there,
let's not jump
that was,
ahead.
That was.
There's a lot of events that
I mean,
occurred
you were
before
just
we get
talking
there.
about the distance of like, did we really only go that far? But like the second day, we did go a lot further.
a lot. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because we were
Yeah.
mainly on the ridge, and
Yep.
you didn't have to.
Yeah.
There was some elevation, but not as much.
It was foggy that entire day.
Okay, yeah, dude,
That
there
entire
was
first
no
day.
visibility,
Right.
None.
It was eerily beautiful.
It
like
was.
it was pretty
It was
awesome.
creepy but cool.
Because you could still kind of see in front of you, but
Maybe-
if you
maybe
looked
30 or
off,
40
if
feet.
you looked off into like where the
A ridge?
vista
Yeah.
was,
Couldn't see anything.
Couldn't see anything at all. You were in the clouds.
Some of my favorite photos that Alex has taken over the years
Yeah.
on our trips were from that day because of the contrast of the like tan
Yeah.
and red Carolina clay dirt contrast with the whitish
Softness.
softness of the fog. Like it's gorgeous, and like the vibrant greens that you could see. Yeah, I mean, we're looking at some of the pictures now, but like, dude, like some of my favorite
They are
photos
beautiful.
We'll
that you've
share a
taken
few
have,
as the.
have been. I'm pretty sure that one of the photos from here has been the background on my the desktop
Is that
background on my
right?
computer for like 3 years.
I also think this area had some wildfire too. If I can remember that, I think there were some.
There was-
pretty
I
dark
do think
trees
there
and
was a
stuff like that,
section,
too.
yeah.
Well, and you can tell
In
because
this
a lot
first
of the growth is really young.
Yeah.
So like there were sections of the pines where you could tell it was all within the last few years, like really, really young pines in a very specific area,
Yeah.
and then around you is all the old stuff. And it's like
Right.
that section had been
Right. We
it
saw
was
that on.
renewed, you know.
Was it Mount Mitchell as well?
We did,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's some burn.
And
Well,
that's
what's
just 50 miles south.
You're right.
Of
You're right.
Linville
Yeah,
Gorge
because
here.
we saw Table Rock from Mount Mitchell.
Yeah.
and too funny.
Yeah, but I remember that whole day, and especially like
I forgot how like brown and red
Yes.
the ground was.
That's
Yes.
how
Right.
it is down there.
Yeah.
yeah. In
but
that
like
area.
walking up on while we were on that ridge, walking up to the edge of what on a clear day and
Would have been a beautiful view.
beautiful is I can see maybe 30 feet in front of me,
If that.
and,
I
it's,
mean,
and
it
then
was-
it's like
it was pretty
And the
limited.
craziest part is you can't
Insane,
see
dude.
can't see down either.
No.
So like you have
Right.
no real frame of reference of how high you are or how far out you
well,
are.
and
or
that
whatever's
makes it
around
even
you.
seem like you're higher up than you are because that depth you just can't
And
tell.
then
Right.
I think in hindsight, when I think about, I didn't realize we did that much that first day, probably was just because there was so much
couldn't
deception
tell.
as far as
Yeah.
seeing what
You're-
was
you're
there,
right.
right?
Yeah.
You're right.
So that first day, sounds like if you're telling me 3 miles,
Yeah,
and then
3.5.
So what was camp that night? We camped
baby.
on the ridge. This
On the ridge.
was a unique night of camp.
All right, so
Very unique night.
I
of camp.
remember this pretty vividly. So we got on the ridge and we started. We didn't really see anybody else out there.
Yeah, not that day.
And we had passed like a handful of different campsites, and we're like, "Oh, this is okay. That's okay." We got to remember we have 9 people, so we need a pretty
Yeah.
large
we
area.
needed space for
Yeah,
sure.
pretty large area. And I remember we saw this one campsite, and it had like a fire ring, and it just didn't have enough space for us. But the fire ring had a grate on it, and I had brought for my dinner that night a vacuum sealed steak
That had been chilling in the cooler all the way up.
It had it was cold. It wasn't rotten. I don't know if have you guys ever done this, but I did this for like a few months. But Butcher Box.
I never did
No.
Butcher
I
Box.
tried it.
Yeah, it was fine.
We did like
It was
Hello
right.
Fresh, I think, for a little bit.
Yeah,
but
this is just
Butcher
meat.
Box
It's
is
just
straight
meat.
up meat.
I know, just
yeah,
meat.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
But
it's
that's only
fine.
for food service.
It's decent. I have
We're not
different ways of I have different ways
We're
of
not.
obtaining meat now, but I think I just had a freezer steak that was just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna take this
Yeah.
on the trip for the first night. Like
Yeah.
it'd be fun just to fry it up and see how it goes. And so like we were on the ridge and we had passed this thing and I saw the grill grate and I brought it with me. I'm like, I'm gonna put this over the fire. I'm gonna use this for my steak tonight. All right, so I carried it like not super far, but enough where I was
I
like,
remember it
half a
was a
mile.
little
Yeah.
bit.
I mean, I
Yeah.
guess technically this was the first foray into kind of
Atypical meals.
well, you had to cook it, so it's not like Chipotle, but sort of bringing
yeah.
something
Extras.
irregular.
Yeah, it
with
was
not a
you
freeze
from
dry.
the
Oh,
bar.
Definitely.
have
I was
gotten-
definitely green as
Yeah.
shit.
So much better.
Oh.
at the at
Oh.
food,
Bro.
non.
I mean, the last trip we
Light
did.
years. Yeah, we've evolved to something.
It's just funny to think of how far
Yeah.
we've come.
But hey,
all because of Austin's shoe steak.
I was the first one
Yeah.
to attempt.
You had to try. You had to try it first to see, and then you learn from your
he
mistakes.
yeah, he
You
broke
have
the
to walk.
frontier.
It was a
Trip.
valiant effort.
You have to walk, trip, and chip your tooth before
Yeah,
you can run.
that's
so,
right.
And try 3
I
different pairs of boots.
Absolutely did that. So, so we found this nice camp. I remember it didn't have a ton of space for
didn't.
everybody.
It was tiny.
So Hair Force and I both were the only ones in hammocks.
Yep.
And I remember like having a tough time finding like a clear enough area because there were
Yeah.
definitely trees, but like a clear enough where like
Yeah.
I could put a hammock comfortably. So it was a little bit of an awkward spot, but I was able to like set it up, pretty well. We were all settling in for the night, but it was time for steak. And
Time for steak.
I remember
Can you
I
call it
couldn't
that?
I couldn't quite put the grill over the flame well enough to cook it. Like it was just not working out, and it was starting to get dark.
Yeah,
Got
it
I
was.
think
dark
everybody
real
else was
fast.
kind of eating.
It
too.
was,
Everyone was
right.
eating, and I was hungry.
It was legitimately dark when you
It
started.
was legitimately
Yeah.
dark.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I just grabbed like a couple like pieces of wood that I found and just laid it on the fire and laid the steak down on it. Now it is not unusual to see people who like cook their food and their meat like campfire
Sure.
style where they're
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
laying it
Chuck
down
it
on
in.
the
Oh,
coals.
yeah.
That's very
Yeah, yeah.
normal. So that's kind of what I did. And again, it was dark because I feel like if it was light, I wouldn't have had this problem. But I think I cooked it to completion. I was like, picked it up and it looked like a little red even on the outside. I was like, oh, dude, this isn't done. So I kept cooking it a little bit. I bit into that thing and it was the toughest piece
Solid.
of meat I've ever, like beef jerky times 1,000. It was horrible.
That's not flavored.
Dude, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was so overcooked.
It's just turning into dust in
And
your
it
mouth.
wasn't
was,
marinated in anything either, right? It was just the steak.
It's just
No,
the steak.
I
Yeah.
thought that
Salt
the
and pepper.
flavor
Right,
of
you
the
didn't even have
fire,
salt.
Yeah, that's right.
the flavor
Yeah.
of the fire and the
Dude, just
beef would
eating
just
some,
be
some low quality
utility,
beef.
bro. Utility.
Utility beef.
High quality. High
Oh, is
quality.
it high
Butcher
quality?
Box
Yeah.
doesn't
No.
doesn't give you
Okay,
shit,
okay,
right? That was
okay.
grass fed,
Well, I apologize, Butcher Box.
Yeah, it
Yes.
was. They didn't. They are not at fault.
It's the season.
Yeah, I was doing the Salt Bay.
Yeah. With nothing.
With dirt.
Yeah.
Grabbing some
Wow.
pine
A little bit of
needles.
found grill grate taste.
Yeah, whatever was left over from the last person who used it.
Yeah.
boy.
And no,
Bear lick.
and it was and I was so upset. Everyone was laughing. It was funny in the moment. But yeah, it was a shit. I mean, I had a full steak, so that was nice.
I was gonna
but,
say,
like,
did you actually? I mean, that was your dinner. Did you actually eat all of it?
Yeah, I think somebody like let me hit a bag.
I think
of
I
something.
probably gave you
Yeah.
the rest of mine.
Yeah,
I
somebody
never
let me like
usually
hit
finish.
something here because it just wasn't enough. I mean, I had other things too. I think.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the steak, but yeah, that was a lesson learned. But honestly, like, dude, I mean, we talked about it. Our food, game is like leveled up pretty
Oh, yeah.
significantly.
Yeah.
It's
and I
incredible.
did that trip. I went crazy with my food because I was on a diet, like a specific, like real restricting diet. I don't
That's right.
recommend it.
You were keto at that.
Yeah.
for that one,
It's
right?
keto is one of those funny things that like has turned into like a weird fad where people are eating keto food even though they're not on a keto diet. And I don't even really recommend the keto diet, but at that moment I was doing it and it worked really well for me. I was really committed to it. And
Yeah.
so my goal was I'm going to do keto on the trail, and then at the end of the trip, my first
Go nuts.
non-keto meal in like 3 or 4 months, I'm going to just pull the pin and go ape.
Pull the pin.
So on the trail, I was doing keto, and the
Yeah.
steak was keto.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I remember that night. So we went right from that into being one of the windier nights
It was a windy night.
on in terms of camping.
Was that
And
the
it
first
was-
night or the second night, though?
I think
was
what,
night
it was,
one.
it was
It
the
was
shoe
night
stick.
one.
night.
It was
I'm telling
night
you,
one.
It was the shoe stick.
Yeah.
This
This was Austin's night.
Dude,
where
this was my night.
everything
Right?
Yeah.
Everything happened for me. This whole night
Yeah.
with the steak and the hammock is burned in my brain. So sorry that I'm hogging the mic right now, but this is like
Burned in your brain
This is
with,
kind of like
with grill marks.
with grill marks. This day and night is definitely like was probably the most eventful besides another trip where I cut and sprained my ankle.
Oh, boy.
But that's another story for another day. No, dude, so it was crazy windy. It was
was
like
nuts.
fighter
Yeah.
jets
I remember
flying
it, yeah.
over us on
Yes.
that ridge.
I do remember being in my
do
tent and
test fly in the gorge.
yeah. It was insane. And I
Tom
remember
Cruise, Maverick was
Maverick
doing
was
buzzing the
just
tower
like,
all night. Yeah.
It was really loud. And I remember sitting so I had my rain fly over my hammock, of course. And I've had success with it. I've never really had a problem with it. But man, that night the rain fly was like, like whipping in my face. I mean, it was like this close to my face. I was like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
I am not going to get a wink of sleep. And I don't know if I'm going to like get crushed by a limb. Like, I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
My rain fly might like fly into the wind. I don't know what's going to happen. So, I don't know why I did this, but I turned my phone on, and I texted my brother-in-law, Paul.
You text him from
Yeah,
the
I don't think I knew
I
you
didn't know
text
that
him.
detail.
So
Yeah.
hold on. Paul's with us on the trip.
Probably not
like
10 feet
10 feet
away.
away.
Not even 10. I knew that he was this is why I texted him. I knew he was the closest to me. Number
Yeah.
one. And number two, I knew he had a 2-person tent.
And he was the only one in it. Yeah.
So I was like, I gotta get in there. And I was like,
Surprised you didn't just go over.
well, I texted him. I didn't get an answer. So I was like,
I'm
shit.
coming.
So I get out. I like try. I don't know what. Like I try to like I fumble with my stuff. Like because like there's shit in my
Yeah.
hammock and blah blah blah. My
Yeah.
pack somewhere.
You just got stuff everywhere.
and so I
at that
zipped
point.
it. I'm like, Paul, I'm struggling, dude. Can I come in? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, he scoots over,
Yeah,
and he's like,
come
of
on
course, like, dude, the dude would have slept on the grass if it, meant that I would be okay in that tent. He's just that kind of dude. Yeah. So I got in there, and it was so quiet. You guys think that it was loud out there in your fucking tent? Dude, no. I was in Paul's tent. I was like, it's silent. There's no wind.
Oh my
so you
God.
have no idea what the wind was like that night. I'm telling you, man, it was brutal. And so I got there. I was like,
believe
this is
you.
I had like the best night of sleep ever. And I was like,
That's it.
I'm kind of done with the hammock.
Yeah.
At least
Dunzo.
in most situations.
Yeah.
But that was the night that the hammock officially died. When we woke up, it was pretty wet. Like it didn't rain, but it was like pretty damp and wet.
Right.
And the first thing I see when I open Paul's tent door and I walk outside is my hammock tangled in a tree that I had to go,
But not in a good
untangle.
way.
No, not in a good
It would
way.
have been
It-
Austin would have been tangled in a
would have
tree.
been like dangling
Yeah.
from a tree limb, and I had to carry that wet ass hammock the rest of the way, and I did not sleep in it.
Yeah,
The rest of the trip.
I remember it being windy when I went to sleep.
Yeah.
But then I slept through the
Well,
entire
yeah.
night,
I never.
as I do.
I was
You
still.
know,
I still
as
wasn't
most people
sleeping.
do, sleep
you
in
were
tents.
inside a tent. But Brad had success.
but I
He
sle-
slept
I
in the
sle- I
hammock.
slept
That's
all
true.
night.
This
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the
Anyway,
night that I discovered that my pad
Pad.
had a hole in it.
Yeah.
Yuck.
You didn't.
Yuck.
You went with the ultra light one.
I went with an
and-
ultralight. I went with the Uber Light from Thermarest. It was like an inch thick. It was ultralight. It was f***ing light, and it packed down to like this.
Yeah, and then when it didn't have any air in it, it
but-
packed down to like this.
Yeah, but it did not have a good R value after it was deflated, nor was it comfortable. Yeah, that sucked. That's when I found out that I was like, I kept waking up because of the wind and because my pad kept inflating. And so I kept blowing up like, is it because it's cold? Like, it's not that cold.
That's
like,
the,
what the fuck is going
That
on?
is, yeah, that
I mean,
is
obviously that's
wishful thinking.
right.
It has definitely got a hole.
that's obviously like I love the Nemo. I love inflatable, and it's so comfortable. But I mean, not a lot has to happen between like super comfortable and sleeping on a plastic
Absolutely.
bag. Like
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, there's no room for air.
There's,
I mean, and it's
a
all-
razor thin.
right. It's all or nothing. Like at a point,
Because at least a closed cell,
yeah.
It is what it
what's
is.
going to happen?
One
you
thing
can
happens.
accidentally drop it in a fire. That's the worst thing that could happen. Like, oh,
One thing happens, and your really nice Nemo tensor turns into a Walmart plastic bag. So
Yeah.
like,
Let me ask
they
this
have the
question.
same value.
Would anyone go back to a closed cell pad?
I never went
In
to a
certain
I was never there.
situations,
I was there.
I would.
I was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I slept on my first closed cell foam pad a couple weeks ago when
If
I was
I
on
was-
Rainier.
Wow.
If
But I had
was
five
doing,
of them. I had 5 of them stacked on top of each other.
5?
Yeah,
Wow.
That's
If
egregious.
I was
A bunch
doing-
of blackjacks.
yeah.
It was
if I was
nice,
doing a much longer,
but it wasn't at the same time.
I was gonna say that doesn't sound nice at all.
It was nice.
Nice,
dude.
Oh yeah.
if I was doing a much longer trip, I might consider just to not have to worry about like
And it's easy to just.
right. There's
Out.
there's a
You're good.
convenient. And
My
I've
only
sle- and I-
problem-
when we did
No.
it on Dolly, and I've slept on a closed cell and been totally fine comfort wise. Like I don't have to have inflatable. It's just kind of a nice to have.
No.
So if, I probably there's situations where I
I
would.
think I would,
My-
but I think the inflatable is far more.
My biggest
comfortable.
problem is
Oh,
just
yeah.
having to carry it on the outside of the pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, then that's
Because they don't fit really well on the inside.
Yeah.
Like I used mine up until
You had it on Linville, didn't you?
dude, I had it
Yeah.
every trip
Yeah,
up
'cause
until
it was- you had to have it for the
last
hammock.
year I got my
Yeah,
Nemo.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And the only problem that I really didn't like is that you have it like I strapped it in on the top, like so it has my pack has the roll top,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have that strap that goes over and clinks or clinks it whatever.
Cheers.
And I would put mine, in between that strap, but
Yeah.
it makes my shoulders wide.
You could
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
put it vertically
Yeah.
on one of the sides, though.
there's different ways to do it. I mean, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it's it takes up more space. Yes, because it
takes up
doesn't
space.
it doesn't collapse.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
But that's the
compress.
biggest
But
problem.
That's
no,
a con.
I would.
That's a
But
con.
it will. It's
No.
a no. It's interesting. It's a no fail product,
Right.
Yeah,
and
that's
how
true.
many no fail products are there?
Pretty
Not
limited.
A lot.
Pretty
Not
limited.
a lot.
A titanium cup.
I mean, like you said,
Maybe,
the only
No fail.
you made the joke about throwing the Nemo in the fire, but I mean, the only thing you can do to lose that is like it drops in a fire, or you
Or
throw it off a
blows-
cliff.
No,
that was my
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
That was
it's
my
like-
point. Yeah,
you're
that,
right.
that I was talking about the closed cell. I was like,
Oh,
what
okay,
could-
yeah.
what's the
It's-
worst that could have? You accidentally drop it in the fire. Like,
You
there's
could-
really not.
You're
that
still
many.
gonna save it. It's not gonna just burn immediately. So
I mean, and it's so that would
Pretty
be the
durable.
only thing is,
And you can change your clothes on top of it.
because you had your
Yeah.
Nemo go out and at 80K.
I
and,
fixed that though. That was easy to figure
or not
out.
80K at,
At the
whites,
whites.
but you were able to fix it. So it's like
Oh my god.
I don't know. I would consider it if I was going out for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
I agree.
Let's get into the second day because
Let's.
we woke up and
I don't even think the pictures that I'm scrolling through have even gotten to camp at night one.
I don't know.
might need
No, we're past that.
This is
This
day
is
two.
This is day two. So
All right.
we started off.
Are you doing this?
I am.
He
yeah.
is. He's just filtering
Look at
through.
that. We're
Vanna
sorry.
White
We're just
over
like
here.
looking at pictures just floating by.
Yeah.
So this was the night we were going to have to get to this was the day we were going to have to get to the other side of the
We needed.
river.
That was the day we were crossing the river.
Speaking of
That
which,
was the day we were
Oh,
crossing
hey,
the
the
river. So
photos
we're getting
for that
to
just
the
came up.
yeah.
I'll leave it here for a little
So
bit.
we knew going into it. I think we had hit a parking lot, and I think we had some service.
We
and I
we
think
checked the water
we
flow.
checked the water flow, and it was not good.
Not good.
I
Not good
I
at
think
all.
online it was like don't cross it if it's an 18.
And it was like
It was
21.
22. Yeah, it was.
oh, God.
It was
So
like,
right now we're looking at a picture
Of
this
us,
is
yeah.
us in a group, and we'll put this in the thing here.
contemplative.
We are literally for 45 minutes trying to figure out how to cross this river as safely as we can.
I want to let's back up a little bit. I'll leave this picture up because I want to talk about that. But what Alex just said. So we knew earlier in the day.
That when
Again,
we got
the whole
there,
way up, we're like minute to minute. We're getting like, where's the water at? Every time we had signal, we're checking everything.
Think we're gonna
Honestly,
go across?
you know what's crazy?
Right.
It was we were in such anticipation for it that I don't remember anything about hiking up to the river.
Well, that's a good point. I mean,
I
it was a good
remember
day.
hitting
hiking.
some
Maybe
of
it
the
was,
little
a
bit.
good
But
day
yeah,
because it
it
was
was a good
clear.
day. Yeah,
we
it started to
to
clear up.
see some
Yeah, yeah.
shit. Like, yeah, it was cool. And we weren't. It was like we were on top of the ridge that night.
It
And,
was
and
still a
getting
little
down to the
foggier,
river
though.
was like,
Yeah.
we were on our way right out of the way.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing you're forgetting is when we woke up, before we even left camp, we did the cathedral, the amphitheater.
That's when we did it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah, that's
I,
when we
I
did
couldn't
it.
remember if it was the second night or the second time or the third day or the second
'cause
day.
we were on
It was
top
the
of the
second
ridge.
day,
Right.
yeah.
So there's an
but
area
that was at night,
there.
though. We
Nope,
did
it was
in
during
the morning.
No, we did
was
it right in the morning.
First thing we
Really?
did.
Right in the morning.
There's an area where
I'm
in
totally
the gorge,
remembering that differently.
where people do slacklining.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
called the
there's an area
amphitheater.
called the amphitheater,
Yeah.
and
Very
we went
cool.
there. Yeah, it's a little the trail's pretty razor thin. I would
Yes.
say
That would be the sketchiest trail
There
we
was-
probably have ever been on.
It-
It was
and
like
I
a foot and a half.
I think
It was
back
pretty,
to that.
It was scary.
I think back to that amphitheater trail pretty often because
Yeah.
it was thin. To our right was just a drop, and there were sections
sheer
where
drop.
I had to
Kind of
jump.
step over.
I
You
had
did
to
have to
step.
jump
I had to
over some
literally,
shit.
Yeah.
there would just be a
But-
random gap in the trail, and I'm like, I'm
if
gonna
you
jump this.
remember, once we got to the end where like the views were,
Yeah.
it was
Incredible.
like that
Gorgeous.
was it was the view.
Yes.
that we
Amazing.
needed to get to.
And it opened up sort of on like sprawled out on top of this
It did,
rock,
you're right,
and then
yeah.
you had this just
We had a lot of space
It
at the
was-
end of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was plenty comfortable.
it was very worth. I would go like if I lived out there, I was local. Like I love Table Rock. Table Rock's fantastic. I would just go to amphitheater.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
honestly,
That's a
you're
place I would go
probably
to.
4 miles because it's
Right.
it was right by where we camped.
It was.
Yeah,
You're
and
right.
it's I would just
So
go do that.
You could day
Definitely,
hike that
definitely.
from the
It's
parking lot.
It
Yep.
was a gorgeous place.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I agree.
There's we got so many good photos from that.
I had forgotten we did that in the morning.
That's where
I
you
thought
can
we did
really
that.
see what they talk about, like the Grand Canyon
Yeah.
of
Yes.
the East, because it was.
And it's cool
yeah,
because you're
pretty
not
incredible.
like it's not something where you're so high up and you have this just expansive look of everything. You're kind of in the range. Like
Yeah,
so
you're in the midst of it.
you're looking across
Yeah.
and you're sort of even with the hill across from you.
Right.
But at the same time, you can see through this entire range of hills and over and like it was a weird it was both. Like you had the overlook kind of feel, vista kind of view, but you're sort of in the mountains. Like I didn't feel over everything. Like I was high up and looking down on the rest of everything. Like we've had at even Hanson's Point was kind of like that at the Red, but we've had overlooks where you're the tippity top. You're
Right,
absolute
right.
top.
We
This was
didn't
like,
have
I'm kind of in it.
nosebleed tickets in that amphitheater.
Right.
Right, they were kind of like
But that's
sweet
kinda-
spot.
That's what
you
I
know?
liked about it. It
We
was
were-
kind
we
of
were
right.
club level.
It
Yeah,
was
club
right in.
level,
It was
yeah.
right in that sort of nice middle ground where you're like you're part of it, but you're also. It was nice.
The
I
best
liked
seats
that.
at a concert are the ones that are right in front of the soundboard.
That's right.
That's where we were.
Yep.
That's a perfect way to put it. Holy shit.
That's because
That's
where they mix.
That is a perfect way to put it. We were right by the soundboard.
Yeah, no, that was really cool, and I'm
Very
glad
in
we
it.
did it without packs though. That was
It was
yes.
good to do without.
it was a little
packs.
sketchy getting
Yeah.
there, but definitely worth it. Just take your time, I would say, if you're gonna do it.
So kickoff to the day, that was great, and then hiking throughout the day, also great hike. But mentioning the river, which we'll talk about, the
Which
lead
was
up,
6 miles away from where we camped.
yeah. So the lead up,
Yeah,
to,
so not a ton, really.
did we passed Table Rock during that section, right? Or did we hit that?
We
on the way
did.
back? We passed. All right. So
and
we
if you
didn't-
remember, we did not go
We
all
did
the
not
way to
go all the
top.
way to
and
top.
down.
we
We
did
did not.
Yeah.
You know what also
So we needed
happened
to
on
get to the river.
on this was the first time that we were talking about water earlier.
Yep.
This is when we so you could see them in the map. They have them on all trails, but spigots where you can get water.
Yeah.
And these
Oh, we had
these
to go.
motherfuckers are not on the side of a trail. You
No.
have to
right.
trek for this.
How did
right?
we even find it?
It's on
We
like
had it on
was
the
on the
map.
map.
It's on
We
the
knew
map,
it.
right?
And then if you remember, there was a little plaque.
Was there a plaque?
that said
Yeah.
water?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you have
because
to
it was
like
not.
It was not close to the
obvious.
trail.
No.
Yeah,
So you
not
have to
obvious.
like get off trail. So like we dropped our packs and like kind of went like
Not
2 or
everybody
3 by
went
3,
down, if you
2 by
remember.
2, yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd like sneak our way down, and there would be eventually this stream, and then this like black pipe,
yeah,
just sticking
poking
out,
out.
and we would just, and it was not gushing.
It was
not quick.
trickle.
It was a trickle,
Which is interesting because the water below in the river was gushing.
Right, yeah.
But that was not. No.
Oh, I mean, so this was basically all just the
Runoff.
the
Yeah,
shit
stream
on
water.
that
Right.
rained on top that had just
Yeah.
slowly trickling down.
so yeah, we would have to fill up there, and that was interesting because like it took some time.
I did feel like we cameled up a lot during this
We
trip,
did.
though,
We
too. So we
did,
were
yeah.
carrying some heavy packs
and
because
some of
we were
that
carrying
was
like 3
we didn't want to
liters.
pull from the river, so
Right.
we knew we had to camel up because we needed water for the evening.
I think I also carried a reservoir. I think this was the last trip I had a bladder in my pack.
I think we were 3 liters that trip.
I think I was maybe even 4.
You know who was 7?
That might have even been light.
I definitely brought a bladder, but not
Pretty
one
sure it was
for
7.
with a hose.
Nick,
No,
I
Yeah,
don't
I had
know.
like a
just had the
platypus.
bladder.
Yeah.
Platypus,
Nick,
yep.
Nick at least had the capacity for 7. I don't think
Yeah.
he was carrying it the whole time, but he had the ability to carry 7 liters of water.
I can hear
And
Nick
I
right
could
now
be-
saying it like, "Hey man, how much water do you have?
Right.
Enough, enough."
But
Enough.
I believe at least once on the trip there was an instance where he had to give water to somebody because they were.
Yeah,
like,
I will
course.
say there have been an instant.
Yeah.
He's a sweetheart.
He-
Well, I
Because
asked
he
him
has
because
so
I knew he
much.
had it.
Yeah, and I agree.
I didn't want to
I
give
was
it my
kind of
pack.
being.
I was like, hey,
I don't
bro.
remember if it was there or not, but I remember being on a trip with him and
He
feeling
was-
like
yeah.
pretty like F it. I can be reckless with this water because Home Dog has like all the water in the world. Or if I need some, he'll have some to
Yeah,
spare. So, I mean, we like to give him a hard time, but it has benefited.
Yeah, he has helped us out by his tendency to
Definitely.
overpack. But
All
yeah,
right, so yeah, let's get to the river crossing.
So we're the to the river, but before the river crossing, the lead up to it, and I wanted to talk about. So we're tracking it closely. We're like, oh,
Closely.
18's good. It's way over 18.
What do you think?
And
Maybe.
it's like, but even then, it's like, well, we got a while to go. It hasn't rained since yesterday.
We gotta
we
see
think
it.
the level's going to come down. It's got to go down, right? It can't go up. And the
Doesn't
next
go
time we
down that
check, it's
fast.
higher. Like it's like, well, we were so optimistic. At least I was.
I was too.
And
I was
it's like
optimistic.
I
the whole
wanted I wanted
time-
eyeballs on it before
Yeah.
we made a decision.
and when we got there, and I think for me at least, it was this whole time like, we got it. We got it. And if we don't, it's fine. But I'm gonna walk up the entire way thinking like, yeah, we can
Walk
do this.
down.
I remember
Walk down,
having
sorry.
moments
'Cause we had to walk
getting
down
down
a
to that
lot.
river
Right.
with you, and just like for whatever reason, there's just vivid moments on the trail with you, like me and you workshopping it just mentally. We were
Right.
It was like
we were
playing a game of ping pong. We
Right.
were just throwing it back and forth, like, yeah, we got this. We got this.
We were
got
problem
this.
solving the whole way down
Yeah.
before we even saw it. And then
Austin knew immediately. I think it was like the day before.
No. I was positive up until the moment we got there, and I knew
Right.
immediately.
And
I mean,
that's
I'm
where
looking at a
it's-
picture
right.
of us looking at this. You can see my crossed arm.
Your
cranky
hand is in your hair.
dude. I'm looking you can only see my back in the picture, and I can already tell. I'm like, we're not doing this.
but I love like that whole most of what I remember that day is just anticipation of getting to the river.
Yeah.
And that's like it's
Upcoming
just cool.
challenge.
That's a cool memory to me because it's like that was the thing. Like we know the bridge is out, we know the water's high.
What are we gonna do about it?
How are we going to tackle this? How are we going? Because we've done
I love that about backpacking.
right.
Oh, I love the puzzle piece. It is a puzzle. You're
And
trying to put
sometimes it's
everything together.
unsolvable.
It was
Yes.
so
It
fun
was
to hear some of your
unsolvable.
wild ideas.
Oh yeah, man. And we were down. And this picture is us just like, hey, what can we do?
There
And
were
it's like,
some
you
weird
know,
ideas. I mean, there were some ideas where we
look
were
at that,
talking
dude.
about
Yeah.
me getting roped up and then swimming. Like I would go upstream a little bit because what the problem was in this area specifically was there were like 3 levels of this
Yeah.
waterfall kind of going down. So there was the river where we thought we could go upstream. I could swim across. I mean, it's a pretty decent distance to go across.
And it's a full on swim. It's
And
not
it would
a wade.
be a full-on
you're,
swim.
Yeah, you're swimming.
and in a pretty heavy flow and
Yeah.
try to have the water take me down enough to get to a certain point before it hit like a 10-foot drop in a falls.
Yeah. And rapids. Like,
rapids.
yeah, full on
And then
rapids, yeah.
below that was another pool section. and then
And then
below
another
that
drop.
was another 10-foot drop.
Right.
And it was if I don't make that and you guys can't pull me back enough, which we found out later that you would just pull me under the water and I would
Right.
drown. So that wasn't safe or viable as far as that goes. So I'm glad we didn't do it. But if I didn't hit that mark, I would be just because then I would go down that 10-foot fall and then be in this bigger pool where who knows if I was going to get pushed down or if I was going to go drop again and
Or
then
get to a rock
and then
or-
get further down.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't a good section to try to
It was
do things because you had
right.
a very razor thin line of getting there or not.
When we were looking at it, it was like, yes, the idea we had, if it worked,
Would have been great.
would have
because
worked.
there was already a line going from where we were to the other side. You
Right.
can see it in one
Yeah,
of
we-
the pictures.
we
too.
coulda, like,
because we
thrown
thought
our
about
gear.
we thought
Yeah.
about pulling the packs and putting the carabiner on the packs and then sliding them over.
Right.
And that's how we would get the packs over.
Right.
I remember that one.
Right?
Yeah, that was
God, we're
that
so
was a good
smart.
one.
And,
Yeah.
and that's
Decent
but
one.
it's getting the people over, and it was
Getting
like,
the
yeah,
people
that
over.
would have worked. If it worked, it would have worked, and it would have been okay.
But
if it didn't, it would have been like
Bad.
The water was
It was really
extremely
bad.
cold.
Right.
Yes.
Very
and this
bad.
This was probably the reason why we didn't even try.
it was.
Because if you remember, we were talking about getting to the other side without your pack and then having to dry off.
yeah.
You nothing
there
to
was,
dry
there
off
was just
with.
a lot of variables.
And at the
You
end of the
can't start a
day,
fire over there. It
At
was
the end
wet.
of the day, that was what stopped us.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we were almost close to being like, yeah, let's try something, and then it was Mike that brought it up. He's like, how are we
Guys,
gonna, how are we
How
gonna
you gonna
warm
get
up?
warm up?
And it's like, oh, we can't.
Hypothermia.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, and it wasn't snowing. It wasn't freezing.
It was
but
cold, though.
The water
It was
was very
cold.
cold.
It was
and
cold
we
enough.
wouldn't have
It
been
was
able
cold
to.
enough.
It was cold enough for sure.
Yeah, no, I think
I mean, it
think
was
you're right.
March.
That was the thing that
Yeah. It was
March.
kind of put
Yeah.
the nail in the idea. And unfortunately we didn't get the chance to try to do it. But I think it was the smart thing overall.
But again, this trip
also
we
like
led is like, this is a trip of experiences. Like
Right, it
I remember
was.
so many
things we were
specific
figuring out.
stories.
Here's
and that was
another
one of them.
thing, and this is another thing. When I kept looking over on the other side, it wasn't like this open area to spread
Right,
out
right.
and dry off. It
You're
was
right.
like the
Go back up the hill.
It was right up the hill.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
no area for us
Right.
to like hang out and get things figured out. It would have been really uncomfortable.
And again, perfect scenario. If all that worked, right? We still had what, like another half day of hiking ahead of us, at least.
just
Like,
about.
it wasn't.
We
it
had a
wasn't like
lot-
we're gonna go over there and camp.
So
it's like we have
picture
a
this.
lot to go.
Here's the other thing to
Wet as
consider.
shit.
Right.
You'd said, all right, we did little over 3 to get to our campsite.
The first
and
night.
then we had 6.
To get to
So call
to get to
that
point.
9 to get to the river.
Yeah.
We had 30 miles for that entire trip. That was Saturday, wasn't it?
This
Yeah.
Friday.
Friday.
That was Friday. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So we would have had 21 miles at that point to still finish.
we probably had at least another,
and
like,
we had
8
to
that
do
day or
we had to
something.
do a lot
We
on
had-
Saturday.
I think we had 6 to do
Another
that
6
day.
that day?
Yeah, which we ended up doing technically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to get to
because
camp
we
too.
just ping pong.
Because
Yeah.
we went back and we went back up to where there was a parking lot and a trailhead, which I probably, if you wanted to go south a little bit further, that would be the area to go to
For parking.
For parking,
Yeah, that was a better
because there's
parking lot.
bathrooms over there and stuff like that. And that was
Yeah.
actually nice. I think it was the first time we actually had a bathroom close to where we were camping for the night too.
Yeah.
Where we were able to. That was the one where like someone either had an emergency in one of the bathrooms because they were kind of closed. But like
remember
someone
there
had
was, like,
pried the door open.
Yeah.
The bear.
The bear,
The bear
was
died
trying to
here,
open. And that's where, like, we've talked about this before, where we had like we saw one of the campsites had like that huge fireplace hearth.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Game
over
of
there,
Thrones.
the Game of Thrones fireplace, which we didn't camp at.
That fireplace, or excuse me, that campground was really cool though.
It was.
That one
And
for night 2 was cool.
We didn't flick the aerobi there, and it
Yeah,
would
we
have been the
could've.
perfect.
Dude, it was like,
aerobi.
it had
Missed
trees, but
opportunity.
it was open enough.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
no ground
But if you
cover or anything
remember,
like that. It was
We could have
sweet.
even just
It was-
walked.
it was cold.
The 0.2 miles down to
It
the
was-
parking lot.
it
and
was
just
cold
pulled
at
through.
night.
It was
It was
very,
cold.
very
at
The
cold.
morning was
Yeah.
so cold getting packed up. I just
Yeah.
remember being frozen.
Yeah.
That night, I remember. I mean,
It
and
was chilly.
I could look through the photos and see it. We were cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
we
days
were
were-
bundled
Oh
up.
gosh, that picture's gorgeous.
We were bundled up.
The days were perfect, but yeah, the nights were chilly. But yeah, I mean the river piece. It's like I don't know. I've heard it in a lot of different contexts and books about outdoors and stuff like. But a lot of times, the smartest decision is the decision to turn back.
Yep.
And like that was that moment, I think, where
Yeah, we learned a lot that
we
day.
could have. I still to this day, I think it's like, yeah, if we had really like locked in and said we're gonna do this, I think we
I think
could
we could've.
have done it. It would not have been as good of a trip if we did.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it would have been
Yeah.
way too risky, and something bad really could have happened. And the decision to turn back was the.
We
was the
also
good
said
one.
that everybody in the group had
Had
to
to
be
be on board.
100% on board, and if one person wasn't, that's
not
okay,
doing it. Yeah.
and we're not going to do it.
Hey, that was me.
Well, no, it was a few people. It wasn't
No,
just
a few
you.
people
And-
It wasn't
and-
just you.
After deliberation, it was definitely unanimous that we shouldn't.
It was
and it was
unanimous
like
after.
Nobody
Yeah.
was
there's-
like, we really
And
should.
listen,
There's
we-
always
we
going to be the
took-
bug in the back of my head of like, it'd be cool if we did.
We
but that's
took
more
our
of just
sweet
you know,
time.
Yeah, we were
making
45
the
minutes
decision.
there.
Well, and honestly, like, although we didn't get to do the full loop,
It was cold there with Mike.
although we didn't get to do the full loop, it felt like we didn't do the same trail backwards because
Yeah.
on the way back, the fog was lifted.
it was lifted.
Yeah.
So you got to see everything way different.
It was beautiful.
I loved that about that.
I know, and we're getting into those pictures now
So,
as like I cycle through. But
right
yeah,
now we're cycling
totally
through.
different trip.
This is at Camp 2 for that second
telling you,
night.
it's cold.
And this is
was
where we were introduced
We're all
to
in beanies.
an incredible mistake that happened. That was one of the most delicious things that has touched our lips. Brad was one of the only
Oreos.
ones that had used a bear can for this trip. He had packed his coffee and his Oreos very close together in this bear can.
Separate bags.
Separate bags. But he pulled the Oreos out and it had a coffee hint flavor to it. And it was the best Oreo I still to this day
It
have
was
ever had.
unbelievable.
Period. It was the best
I-
Oreo.
You can buy coffee flavored
No,
Oreos,
and it doesn't taste
guess
the
what?
same.
They're shit. Take
Yeah.
them off the shelf.
Nope.
There's
Yeah.
absolutely no reason they should exist.
Yeah.
But store,
dramatic.
Store them close together for a little bit.
And it makes a beautiful, beautiful treat.
Oh my gosh!
So, yes.
I gotta put a note down. I'm
And
gonna
it's
go
so
buy some
easy.
Oreos
Literally,
and
do that.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
try to recreate it.
Yeah.
I mean, they were in a bear can, so it has to be an airtight container.
That's
right?
true.
And then put them close together in a airtight container.
I'll bet if you put coffee and Oreos in a Ziploc bag together,
it probably gets.
We've talked about this before. Of
pretty
you don't want to
fucking
eat the
close.
grounds, though.
Right, you don't want them directly touching.
coffee filter, bro. Salt.
Right.
Be,
Put it
be
in
smart.
something.
Be
Talked
smart.
about that.
Be smart. Okay, come on.
Put it in.
Come on, you're
what's
smart.
the,
You're a smart
what-
guy.
you
But
made
you're
a-
talking about
you
just
made a
at
joke
least
about
setting them
this.
on top of it. That
No. Put
a recent episode.
coffee beans or coffee ground, whatever the you want, in a bag, in a Ziploc bag,
right.
And then put the Oreos in like a piece of tissue paper or something.
Right.
Oh,
like,
okay, yeah,
so
but they're
that
not
the grounds
touching.
don't. Yeah,
But they're not touching
cheesecloth.
still.
Cheese-
Yeah,
That's what you were ready to joke about.
Cheesecloth. Yeah, any recipe that's cheesecloth. Nope, out.
But no, that would work if you get a coffee filter. You have them anyway.
Yeah, I don't,
You've
I,
got
don't,
coffee.
I don't want the grounds on
that's
there
right.
either.
Yeah,
but-
okay.
Put them
as
in
long as
that,
you're not
and then
having
put
grounds on.
those with some loose Oreos into a bag,
Yeah.
and just let them fumble around
all
for a
day
while.
long.
Boom, man, there
I'm
you go.
trying it. I'm doing
Dude.
this in the winds.
Give it out.
Same dude.
And it's proven.
Bulletproof.
I'm blessed to be. I think I was the first one to have one of those Oreos, and I was like, "Holy!" Like it blew my mind how
So good.
amazing it was.
so good.
So thank you, Hair Force, for
Yeah.
That little treat.
that treat.
But yeah, that was a cold night, cold morning. I remember packing up and just being like frozen,
Kind of
but,
ready to get. Kind
Were
of
we,
ready to
were
get
we
going.
only
ready
at
to get
Linville
going.
2 nights?
Nope,
No,
3
'cause we
nights.
got,
No, 3, 'cause
Thursday.
there's
Friday,
one more
Saturday.
night, buddy.
Made our
One
way
night.
all the way back to the
What's the
start.
third night?
So yeah, we were hiking and we kind of went past where the loop like
We
okay,
did.
so like where we started in the parking lot,
Just
we
like this jet.
hiked up and started
North.
going north.
Yep.
We kind of went past where we would have turned to go down to the parking lot.
We followed the trail south.
We followed the trail south to hit
the
the
river.
river again, and then we camped right by the river.
I
Yep.
remember that spot now
Hold
very
on.
vividly.
Was
Yep.
this the Mike? Why are we doing this? Trip?
No,
no.
That
All
was
right.
that
Sorry.
was ADK.
That was
we-
that
so-
already.
Mixing memories.
We got to this campsite.
Great memory.
okay, campsite. What was cool is that there was like this little dip off over to the river where we all like played hacky sack.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
remember that?
I
There was like a
think
bunch
that
of us.
campsite was one of my favorites.
No, it was okay.
I thought it was great, and the
Because
one
the
reason
little like fire pit area
Yeah.
was rad.
Yeah,
The
but
one-
your tent was like halfway on the trail.
See, one of the reasons
all right,
why
who
I
cares
love
about
that area so
We've
much
slept
was because
in worse places.
I put my tent. I was in a one-person tent at that time, and I put my tent like in an area that didn't have any trees in front of it, and so it was cold. The sun was beating.
That night was warm.
The sun
That
was
night was
beating
warm.
on my tent, and I got in because I was a little chilly. I got in my tent, and it was like a sauna. I was like, I took my clothes off a little bit. I was
Yeah.
like laying on my pad that was deflated, and just so I was
My
laying on my
Walmart
bag. and it was really nice and warm until it got cold again during the night. But
It was. I had
wasn't
forgotten
as
that.
bad.
I'd forgotten that aspect of the trip.
Yeah.
Getting down to that trip,
getting down,
Yeah.
spot.
getting down sucked a little bit.
Yeah, it was
because
tough.
Because I
That was a
remember
tough
it was
day of
like, well,
hiking.
we're literally just going down to get to the campground or to the camp spot,
badass
and then
picture
coming
right
up. Oh, that sucked.
because
I
we
remember
went from
Yeah.
2,873 feet all the way down to 1,300 feet.
that. and that was a short period of time.
Yeah.
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 But yeah, I remember.
then we
Getting
had to
down
go
to that
back up.
campsite, and just it was a good chill hang. But do you remember we were sitting there? We had all of our stuff. We were hanging for the night, and it was getting kind of dark. And these two
yes.
dudes,
the runners.
Yeah, the trail runner.
Yeah.
they just came out of the woods huffing. I mean, they had trekking poles. They had small packs on.
Yep.
They were moving.
They were-
right, not running.
Older gentlemen.
But definitely going. Yeah, older.
Yep.
Well, that's who trail runs, right? That's who
And
does
me.
ultras.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, they were.
No, I'm making
were
a joke that like like everybody
He's
runs.
talking about like
If you
how
know, you
marathon
know.
runners are young man's sport, and then an ultra runner is an old
not
man's
even
sport.
not even sprinting and like anything up to like cross country distance is a young man's sport. Then like marathons like 20s to 30s, and then 40 and older is for ultra marathoners are 40
Hey,
and older.
I'll take it.
But anyways, these dudes, yeah, we were like, oh, where are you headed? And they said Mount Mitchell. And we're like, cool. And they were like, all right, see ya. And then we thought about it. And we're like, wait, Mount Mitchell's like 40 miles from
50
here.
miles.
Yeah.
50 miles.
And they were like, that's where they were headed.
Yep.
Just gonna do that.
they were beasting.
And they were just,
They
and
were.
that was the, again, this was early on. We hadn't done a ton of trips yet, but they didn't have a lot with them. Had a little, camelback, like the
they're
beefed up
yeah,
one.
they're
It's got
small.
pockets and shit
It
on
was
it. And
it was a Solomon pack.
And they go down, 50 yards or whatever, and there's a river. They have to get across it, and they just go, they just walk right
that
through.
was
it.
I think that was probably at that time. It was like, wait, they didn't take their boots off or
Right.
shoes off, or they just
Because
went
every
through.
time we had done any
I know.
crossing at that point, we're
They
like,
just
oh,
shoes
boots
off.
off. Let's
Yeah.
do the whole thing. And it's like
Yeah.
this big ordeal, and they're like, whoa, they just walked across and then kept going. I was
Crushed
like,
it.
oh,
Their
all right.
feet are gonna be wet for the rest of the
How
trip.
are they going to survive? Their
Yeah.
feet are going to be
But
wet.
it was a pretty badass moment where you're like,
Yeah, it
was
oh
cool.
shit, these dudes are for real.
It was really
Yeah.
cool.
I had that moment too when we were climbing up Mount Washington in the White Mountains.
Whites, yeah.
And these dudes that were running down that morning that were just like boop, just
Yeah.
crushing,
Right.
just popping from rock to rock, just
Yeah.
really moving. And I was like, dude, it's just so impressive. Like, what some people are able to do.
Yeah.
I love that kind
I
of
just
stuff.
looked and we were like, this is a long episode already. There's so much I still want to talk about, but we're looking through the pictures now, and we mentioned it already, but I really want to hit on it more. Is the difference? We had to go to the river. We had to turn back.
Yep.
But we had two
Incredibly different
trips or
10
stretches
miles.
of that ridge.
Yeah.
And because when we went in, the fog was heavy, we couldn't see anything, and we got to see
Everything.
It was like a different
Everything
trail,
on the way.
and
It
that's what I
was.
think was one of the most redeeming
Of the fact that we
things that
had to
happened.
do
Yeah.
the back and forth.
And
I
it's
agree.
like, and I love that we got to see it in both versions, because we came back. It's like, oh, this was the view that was so cool in the fog, but now it's like
yeah, it was
a
puzzling.
different style of cool,
Yeah.
because we can see, and then all these crazy vistas.
And I'm
stuff
glad
got
we
to see
were
on the
able
way
to
back.
see on this side of it,
Right.
because on the right side where we did the trail twice, basically, that's when you're up on the ridge. If
Mm-hmm.
we were going to complete and go over the other side, we were going to be lower, so we weren't going
Yeah.
to get those
We wouldn't have
views.
seen it, yeah.
Right.
And I'm really glad that it happened. So like everything kind of happens for a reason a little bit on that side of it, but that was. You're right. That was the redeeming quality of having to do a yo-yo going down and back and having to do the same trail twice, because we really got to experience a whole new trail.
I almost forgot how intense it was going down to that river for that last
That
night. But we had to go up it,
Correct.
on the way out. That's
Yeah.
all. That's
Sunday
all we
morning.
had
Yep.
to do.
and this is where, again, I've said that this is like one of my favorite trips. I was weirdly in like the best shape ever, and I took the lead on that last day, on that Sunday. And I felt so, I was crushing it.
Yeah.
I also knew that, like, okay, this 4 months of keto is about to be done, because
Yeah, you're motivated, baby.
we're going somewhere. Like, I'm feeling good. I was, just in the zone.
We only had to do 2.5 miles.
It was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was up, dude.
It was
Well,
up.
we had a long drive that day, so
Yeah.
we knew
We did.
we
had a
knew
long
we
drive
had
as
to
well.
finish.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about that piece before, and Mike's here fishing. That's such a good.
Didn't catch
So
anything.
Mike has brought his fishing pole on. I mean, he brought it on a handful of trips.
Yeah, it's
And-
not so
It's
much
not been
anymore.
out in a while though.
Yeah,
Yeah, because he hasn't caught anything.
He caught one little salmon on one trip.
It was that
was
big.
like
I don't think it was a
the
salmon,
size
was
of
it?
my hand.
Yeah.
It
less
was a
than that.
tadpole.
We all got a bite.
Yeah.
It was, you know.
It was like a trout.
But yeah, I mean, Austin had like the trip of his life, and then this was my humbling trip. This is the one
Yeah.
that broke me, and I was like, hey, maybe I should start preparing more.
Yeah.
This is I became an old man on this trip. That's
Yeah.
where I learned that I'm
You
old.
hit your ceiling, I think.
But
like
again,
said.
you,
yeah,
you-
you
you-
so perfectly
You
said.
haven't
Yeah.
replicated that, right? You
No,
know?
no, and we've done harder stuff. I think at least I would. Yeah, I mean, I think
so.
whites is harder, but
think
I haven't
so.
hit that point. I don't. But it was a point of exhaustion that I've not experienced, in backpacking ever on Linville.
It was
And,
special.
yeah, it was special.
I think the thing with this trip that really stuck out to me the most is that North Carolina is sneaky.
North Carolina
Yeah.
rules.
It does.
It's probably one of my favorite states to go backpacking in.
It-
and
it-
we've done a
it
few
is
trails
my
in North
favorite
Carolina,
state, yeah.
and it impresses me every time we go. And I do absolutely want to go back to Linville.
Might be one of my favorite states to drive through because like what's cool is
It's
you can see
beautiful,
Table Rock
dude.
from the highway.
Yeah.
Which is this whole area we were in. And I've made that drive through several times, and there is you can tell just by driving through it how much there is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
At any given point, you're like, I could just pull over and just walk and have the greatest experience
Yeah,
ever.
Yeah.
absolutely agree.
And it's there's a stretch there that's just something magical.
It's a place you guys should definitely go and visit
Yeah.
and go and hike. Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah, I would
Agreed.
say
Definitely.
it's on tops of many of our lists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would guess.
Anything else to add, guys?
I want to go back.
Other than wanting to go back.
I was gonna say, how soon do we want to go
Yeah.
back?
Is
It's been picking
It's been a
in my
minute. Is this a
brain, yeah.
2025 thing?
been
It might
3
need to be.
years.
Yeah.
I don't
It might
know.
need to be.
You know what's crazy? This is the same year that we did the Adirondacks. We did Linville and the Adirondacks in the same year.
Did we really?
Wow.
We did it. We did the.
It was after this trip.
Oh wow, no kidding.
that makes sense because
You did this
Did
trip.
right,
I
you
did
did
this
this
one.
one,
Yeah,
yeah, Adirondacks,
yeah.
so,
It's
yeah.
just crazy to
Yeah,
me
man,
that we
wow.
did those 2 long trips.
It's a
Yeah.
big year.
2 epic trips.
It's a big
really.
year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big year.
Well, if you guys have done
Nuts.
Linville and enjoyed it as much as we did, let us know. The email is trailtheorypod@gmail.com. Don't forget to leave us a comment on YouTube. Don't forget we have the YouTube channel now. So if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can pop over and watch us because we all look so damn good.
that's right.
Yeah. But as always,
especially this guy.
as
Relax.
always, thanks for liking and subscribing, and we will see you next time.
All those options, and you're picking pretzels.
Hell yeah. The Trail Theory Podcast is sponsored by Audimute and Audio Technica. Music by Dan Koch.